Hi, I'm Scott Smarud, broker and owner of Smarud Real Estate. Today I am very excited to talk with you about our prearranged buyer and seller program. This is where the buyer and the seller have found each other, not a bunch of people traipsing through your home, not a bunch of competition to fight against to get the right home. We are ready to go. So there are 10 basic steps. I'll go over them with you in very quick detail and then touch on them a little bit more at the end. Step 1, agree on the purchase price. But there are also a few other things, so agree on some ground rules. So that goes smoothly. Step 2, buyer and seller will learn about the 10 basic terms that happen in a transaction, just some things that might not have been considered. Step 3, buyer and seller decide on what they want, what their preferences are for those 10 things. Step 4, I'm hired. Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. Step 5, I'm going to talk with the seller about their basic situation and just be sure that this transaction and its terms work for them. Step 6 is I'm going to do the exact same thing with the buyer. And then if everything works out, any differences in what the buyer and seller want are worked out, typically between the buyer and seller. And then we put together a document for final review, send it out. Be sure that once it's actually written, pen on paper, ink on paper, it works. And then if so, it goes out for signatures and it gets signed. Boom, congratulations, we're in escrow. So we continue just like any other transaction would. Once you go into escrow, we're going to have the seller completing the disclosures. Now they should have already mentioned it, anything of significance, but they'll complete the disclosures. The buyer will have their home inspection done. Be sure there aren't any surprises. Termite inspection done. Be sure there aren't any surprises there. And away we go. So now rewinding a little bit, step 1, ground rules. Have the home be as is. So now all home sales are that way, but typically there's a request for repair done somewhere during the transaction where buyer says, hey, I didn't know this was needed, didn't know that was needed. Totally understandable. But here where everybody's agreed in advance, let's say that the sale is as is. Let's set a limit, maybe it's $3,000, but every home is going to have a few things. So we don't want to replace an outlet or, things that can be easily done by a new buyer and that really would be done, might not be done if the buyer had been the owner of the home for the last year. So, and then we go termite work. Now, if termite work is in the contract, generally speaking, a lender is going to ask that it be done. If not, oftentimes it's not requested. But so just know that. So if the seller needs to rent back for 30 days, and then we agree to have the termite work done and it needs to be tented, well, now we've got the seller on up, but before close of escrow has to move out for a few days, have the house tented, and then move back in. That might not work so well. So we just figure out how we want to structure that. And any changes to the purchase price, of course, the buyer and seller will work amongst themselves to figure out, what's best. But then they'll talk with me, of course, as the agent, and then you'll just see how it all fits in, maybe think of some things that weren't initially considered that seemed fine. And then, of course, we want to document it because there are other parties involved, and we want to be sure that everybody's on the same page so that we don't get to the end and buyer and seller said, hey, we agreed to this, but nobody else knows about it. And now the terms of the purchase agreement. Now I've got a separate video that you can watch to talk about those. And of course, during all of this, I'm completely available. We talk about everything. Give me a call anytime. And preference on the purchase agreement terms. Obviously, each has their sheet, and we match them up. And then if there's something that's significant, it gets worked out. If not, we just figure out what goes in the document. Me getting hired. Of course, there's an agreement that gets signed there as well. And now we're 5 and 6 talking with buyer and seller, of course, is self-explanatory. Number 7 is getting the documents in line. So that'll go out via DocuSign. We'll have email, electronic signatures. Very easy, almost too easy. Number 8, escrow getting open. There's a little flurry of documents that happens there, but again, it's a very normal part of the process. And this allows you to get the best of both worlds, of course, because you have everything that a traditional transaction would have, except for some of the cost and the additional time. Now, once we're in escrow, you'll have already done a lot of the work. So escrow will be much smoother, much easier, and for that matter, it can generally be shorter if the parties agree. And then seller disclosures, and I think I might have touched on that. Anything that's happened in the past with the house, even if it was fixed by a licensed contractor, as well as, if there's an unpermitted room addition or something like that. Anything important should have been mentioned before so that the buyer's going in with eyes wide open. but we still need to fill out the form so that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And then buyer home and termite inspection. That inspector is going to be about 3 hours, give or take an hour, going around the house. Termite inspection should be scheduled at the same time if at all possible. That's typically half an hour or so. Termite inspector will be inside for a little bit and outside for a little bit, and then provide a quote on whatever might be needed there. So that's a high-level overview. Of course, there's always a lot more, but please give me a call. Let me know how I can help. If you have a situation that is not a prearranged sale, I'm sure there's something else I can do. We have some great programs for sellers to help them get all the help they need, but make it similarly quick and easy. And the only additional step, of course, is finding that buyer. So again, my name is Scott Smarut. Please give us a call, 760-644-1484. And thanks for watching the video.